This video is for business leaders who want to radically improve their odds of successful product launch online. This is a book review launch, updated and expanded by Jeff Walker. So watch to the end of this video for bonus material on a new persuasive technique that didn't exist, or rather the author wasn't aware of by the time he published the book, because the book it came out in was published about 3 months previous to his own. That's when it was launched, so he didn't have it. And also my recommended video about unity and chorality. It's essentially an extension of some things I will be talking about throughout the video, but goes into more depth. It's one of the strategies, one of the principles, levers of influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. So I'm currently in the pre-launch phase of my first introductory course, so the timing of this book is perfect for me. I first learned about this book from another excellent book on copywriting, which was called How to Write Copy That Sells by Ray Edwards. He referred to the book I'm reviewing today in his book, and given that the quality of his book was so good, I took his word for it. And this is an example of how, as you demonstrate competence, skill, and value, people will start to trust things like your recommendations of other products and books. That book I would also highly recommend. What got my immediate attention about the book launch was the fact that Jeff talked about Dr. Robert Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion and why influencing positively and ethically are the best long-term strategies. Now, there's a lot of both research and personal experience that supports this, including that from Adam Grant in his book Give and Take, and many others, including Robert Cialdini's Influence, also updated and expanded, which came out a few months before this book that I'm reviewing today. Another thing that I really liked was that he told his origin story, what he calls his product launch formula, or PLF, the central focus of this book. Probably in a way it's part of his own pre-launch content, but it's also a very excellent book on how he's been able to successfully launch many products using his approach that he references and then cites throughout his book examples of using the 6 principles or levers of influence, of which now there is 7. So he couldn't integrate that one because he wasn't aware of it when his book was released. What he did really well is he clearly described how his own digital marketing strategies for small business worked and how well they worked, especially in contrast to the other people he references in the book, which were other leaders in the digital marketing space. This was many years ago, and how he just assumed others were doing something similar to him, only for him to find out that they were not, and what he was doing was working much better, which then product launch formula hadn't existed yet, but the recognition from the community, the digital marketing community, showed him that this was a very good product, and he came out with the product later based on the feedback he got from that community and the excellent results he got, and then taught to others, and they also got the same kind of results. What made this book compelling more than anything is how successful it was, not only for himself, but for his customers, and he specifically refers to their stories and includes case studies in a supplement. Another thing that stands out, the best quality books, those who really believe in the things that he does, including over-delivering on value, will include supplements and PDFs with their books. I would say the minority do that, and they usually have the best books. The part that made it even more compelling, more believable, and more encouraging to me is that everybody, including himself, effectively started from zero or nearly so with respect to mailing list and resources. When the author started his product launch formula as a business, he already had a business newsletter that was around the stock market, but effectively that list was useless because it had nothing to do with his new product. So he wasn't able to use that, and he started basically from scratch, as did many of the customers that he specifically cites and goes into the details of their stories. This is interesting to me because a lot of people say, well, many people have succeeded from my product. He gives specific references, names, businesses, and so forth, which gives it not only more credibility, but the ability for you to verify what his claims are. This is something sorely lacking in a lot of people's work, because honestly, I'm not sure whether they want you to verify it. He didn't actually spend much time time saying what he did different than the others in his industry way back when he discovered how effective his formula was compared to what others were doing. To me, that's a bit of a shame, because for me, it would have been really nice to know what those differences are. Sure, it's great to know exactly what I should be doing, but I would also love to know what I should not be doing. That is, where am I losing opportunity cost by focusing on things that I'm doing that I could trade that time and focusing on that formula. It's valuable. And unfortunately, he didn't include it in the book. And I think that would have been a really great value add to the book. I also think that could help myself and others to stop doing those things. So another thing I would have liked to see in this book was a list of the marketing strategies. In particular, that is the 6 principles of persuasion, Cialdini's 6 principles, in a list near the end of that book. Here's an example of this. He did it throughout the book, but it was hard to keep track. It would have been super helpful to, after hearing references throughout the book, to then hear specifics and a list breakdown so you could see with each part of the product launch formula where he used them and how he used them all in one place. So a summary of those levers of influence. To be fair, I'm confident that he covered each one of these points in the book, but it was really hard to keep track of them. You can see whether you've ticked all the boxes for all 6 of those levers, which I, as somebody who's a longtime student of Cialdini's work, would have loved to have seen. He ended on what some people might think is a seemingly soft note, and that was to follow your bliss. But I really love that. It basically showed Jeff was not only very, very intelligent, very knowledgeable and stuff, and educated about his topic with really extensive practical experience, but also that he is a wise man with respect to what really matters to people and what most people get into business to do. Not to run a business, but to make a difference in the world, have more time for themselves and all those other things. But he really emphasizes the fact that if you don't love your business, if you don't love your clients, and it isn't making the meaningful impact you hoped it would, if that was important to you, that you rethink and change that. Since he wrote this, there is verification. I think it was Katie Milkman in her book, How to Change, talks about verification of that whole idea of follow your bliss. It isn't just a quaint notion. It's something that they're now finding scientific verification of, something I focus on in this channel. What is intuitive, what feels right, what seems right, and people believe isn't necessarily even real. It isn't even necessarily scientifically verifiable, but I love when it is, when that intuition aligns with the scientific verification. Those are the kind of things that I specifically focus on Crush It Club, because there's too many Fruit Loopery principles out there. Fruit Loopery is essentially people using scientific and technical words that they really don't understand or pretend to understand in order to make their ideas sound more scientific when they have no science behind them. I am fully against that and exposing it. What I really liked about this book for me is that he showed that he had the option of being a digital nomad, working when and where he wanted, with whom he chooses, and while making the difference and focusing on what matters most to him. He is essentially the type of person I'm striving to be, and this book brought me one step closer to that reality. So thank you for watching this far. We're now at the bonus content, and I'm a little sad that Jeff Walker wasn't able to listen to Dr. Robert Cialdini's Influence New and Expanded, which I referenced earlier, which was released just 3 months earlier than his own book. Cialdini's book I have reviewed in multiple videos because I go over every single lever of influence. I would have loved to see how Jeff Walker would have applied Cialdini's 7th principle of persuasion, which is called unity, that was added in that latest edition of his book. The 7th of the 7 levers of influence is how we identify and bond with other members of our group. But how you build unity, there are 2 main ways to do that. And you can use this in essentially anything in terms of relationships, including product launches, persuading positively, workplace cultures, things like that. Both of these 2 things can be used to influence people to buy your product, support your group and its members, as one example. The first is called a synchronous activity. That's any activity you do together at the same time. time. So for example, like the chant and dance or gestures you do when you are a fan of a sports team and your home team, everyone who's a fan of the home team knows the team chant or the team song and the dance that goes along with it. And everybody performs it together at the stadium during games. Now, remember, most of these people don't know each other, but when they do that activity together, they feel closer to one another. That's an example of synchronous activity that builds unity and makes people feel part of the same thing. So other examples of synchronous activities that would do this is dancing. Think of line dancing and how everybody does the same thing at the same time. Marching, that soldiers do. Singing, reading a story together or one word at a time or one sentence at a time while everybody follows along. So sort of like a word relay. That's referenced in Cialdini's book. The second type of activity is called a coordinated activity, and that's any time a group works together to accomplish a common goal. So think of a barn race. Not that many people are doing that these days, but a team obstacle course where helping each other helps your whole team get across the course or through the course, usually against another team. Building a taller spaghetti marshmallow tower or a marshmallow top spaghetti tower against some other team you're competing with. If you don't know that reference, it's in a lot of business books. And the team that wins on the marshmallow tower, by the way, usually 5-year-olds. The MBAs and other academics usually get beat out by children. It's a very interesting phenomena, and there's good reason behind it. Both types of unity can be built into your product launch, company culture, and any community where strengthening the bonds between group members is desirable. That's it for the main content. My recommended video for today is unity and chorality. And in case it isn't obvious, it is actually a deeper dive into the principle of unity. That's it for Crush It Club 289 book review, launch, expanded and updated by Jeff Walker. I will also put a link at the top of my description, Persuade Positively Primer, which is related to those 7 levers of influence and how you can use them positively and ethically. That's it for Crush It Club 289 book review launch, updated and expanded by Jeff Walker. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.